Okay, I am on. So, hello, thank you so much for coming today. I will be talking about embodying wellness and really embodying an active wellness for today, for the week, for the month, and for the year to come. I think now more than ever in our post COVID world, and a lot of time in introspection, reflection, examining social distancing, our communities, and reprioritization of life itself. I thought it would be really helpful to make this webinar entitled Embodying Wellness, Mind, Body, and Finding a Good Therapist. I hope this presentation is helpful. I am a big believer in take what you like and throw away the rest. And I hope you guys enjoy. So let's begin. Okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Leah. I consider myself a researcher and a clinical mental health counselor. I think a lot of my work is grounded in community and agency work. So I'm very much tied to respecting the places I'm in. I do believe in historical relevancy and action, and being aware of the history of the places and spaces that I frequent. I also believe in mentorship as sponsorship. So I believe in mentoring. I believe in actively seeking out mentors. And for me, the best mentors have always had an aspect of sponsorship with their mentoring. So it wasn't kind of just these are the keys and what I do, but rather opening up doors, sharing opportunities, an academic or empirical or research-based love language of sorts. So I strive to be that one day, hence my work in grad school and working with different organizations. Another piece that's important to me is Ubuntu. It's basically a South African phrase, meaning my humanity is connected to yours. So I truly believe in that. I kind of myself being Guyanese American, I come from a global context and a global perspective. A first generation Black, Latinx, African American, Caribbean American professional. I just always kind of see the interconnected ways that all these identities and communities lie in. And I believe and I hope to create just clinically relevant, action-oriented work. So webinars like this, educating, that's really big in the work I do. And I really strive to be able to have work that's tangible and practical. That's all I hope that my work comes out to be. The pictures that I have on the side here, so this Brooklyn and Manhattan photo, I am from Brooklyn and I'm very much tied to my New York identity. I love New York. There's no place like it. And I think it really made me the person I am today, the person extremely invested in culture, the person open to diversity, and very down to earth, very fast paced, quick, a little intense. So I think all those things tie into who I am today. This photo down here is from a mentorship event that I was a part of. And I love working with young women. I love working with adolescents. I think this picture just summarizes kind of my like of working with young people. The next photo, Instagram therapists are the new Instagram poets. This is one of my biggest accomplishments or excitements. I was mentioned in the New York Times. So as you guys will see on the next slide, I do have a mental health blog / brand. And that was just a huge accomplishment and just makes me happy. And I think that research dissemination can hit social media spaces and it doesn't make you less academic or less professional. And then the last photo here is of me in Egypt. And I have photos of my family, of course, but I couldn't find a great photo with all of us. But yeah, I love traveling. And that's been one of the hardest parts about COVID. Just lots of travel plans and kind of a call to be, I don't want to even say patience, that's not the right word, but a call to be just take my time because right now we can't travel. Okay, so next piece, as I mentioned before, being research informed, research guided. I hope to promote wellness counseling and therapy stigma. One of the first things I noticed on becoming a counselor is everyone kept asking me for a counselor, but they kept whispering, and there's a lot of stigma and a lot of shame. So I hope to reduce that in my work. And during this presentation, please use the hashtag Fresh Progress Wellness, or follow me on all social media platforms at Fresh Progress Wellness. I post a lot of mental health research as well as contemporary isms of mental health. So right now, we just finished Minority Mental Health Month. There was a recent celebrity stint with a famous singer, Tamar Braxton, that had attempted suicide. So I kind of write about the intersection of pop culture and mental health, and I really like educating and tying in some of my research into the social media sphere. Key objectives. So today, I hope you all will learn about wellness pathways to understand mental health navigation. I hope you'll gain an opportunity to develop wellness plans, finding therapists in more active ways, and encouragement of finding a wellness community. And I hope that all participants today walk away with, over 12 plus resources of developing their own personal pathways to wellness. So I have a little trick. During this presentation, it will be very interactive. So I will pause, and I will need you to pause, especially if you're watching this through video or through audio platform. So when you see the pink screen, or when you hear me say pen and paper, I need you to pause and get some pen and paper because we have an interactive activity. So as we move through this presentation, I want you to consider your wellness plan. So at this point, you can get a pen and paper, and you can write at the top just wellness plan, and just write whatever comes up for you. As this presentation goes, you will get tools and strategies and best practices, but I also want you to write those ideas that aren't on the slides, and the ideas that just come up to you and really awaken your personal soul or your personal wellness pathway. So wellness plan. I first and foremost want you to understand that wellness plan can be changeable, right? So my wellness plan in graduate school as a first-year counselor is very different than my wellness plan as a doctoral student as a licensed counselor. Wellness plan includes tools, and wellness plans are proactive. You don't go to a wellness plan, you don't make a wellness plan when there's a crisis. Best time is usually before crisis, but you can also make one during crisis. And it's just a changeable and updated document. And I just want you guys to have this important document because I think it's so important. And it's a great tool to bring into counseling as well. I know some counselors that use the wellness plan monthly and really play with it with their patients. So on the right here, I just have an example of a wellness plan. It basically reads wellness plan. In the AM, this person wants to meditate. They want to do affirmations, drink coffee, and go on Pinterest. They want to read and listen to uplifting music as they get ready. And then in the PM, they say they want to record their thoughts. They want to watch TikToks, and they would like to do a gratitude journal. So this is a pretty, okay example of a wellness plan. I would add some therapy on there, among other things, but it's personal to you. And I just think this is a fun, artistic way to really tap into embodying wellness. Okay, ding, 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 it's pen and paper time. So I'm gonna ask a question, and I would like you to pause the video or the audio for 5 minutes and write down your answer. I will keep going, but I encourage you to pause, and I encourage you to be active and engage in this presentation. So pen and paper, what are your current forms of self-care for your mind and your body? I'm gonna repeat that. What are your current forms of self-care for your mind and for your body? So you can pause it. Great, and I'll continue forward. So now we're going to go into defining mind and body wellness. The mind, right? So it's first and foremost and extremely important to understand that from a research perspective and a statistical perspective, the brain has a negative bias. It is much easier for your brain to remember negative things, to have fear and even worry, than it is to maybe have more positive or dopamine or optimistic things, right? So the negative bias researchers have attuned to the brain actually comes from a survival tactic, right? So in our ability to remember that when we turn on this fire on the stove and we touch it and we get burned, that negativity bias is important. So when we cook, we are careful, right? So even though it's not the best thing, it is helpful. And especially, I feel like now, just what I'm seeing in my office, what I'm seeing statistically in the country is a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, and a lot of people feeling like this negativity is very isolative and very only them. They're the only ones going through it. And I always educate that our brains naturally have a negativity bias. 9 times out of 10, we are not the only one kind of going through those negative isms. And knowing that there's research to back that, and that's just an important thing to keep in mind. I think another thing to think about when we think about mind wellness is dismantling the ways that grind culture influences our expectations, right? So what is grind culture? I would say grind culture is more so of the work and hustle. You have the same amount of hours in the day as Beyonce. You see a lot of those memes and a lot of those quotes everywhere. No sleep life. I work for myself. Just a stark ambition by any means necessary. And while that can be positive professionally and really help you get to certain goals, and discipline is important, right? And passion is important, we have to be careful about those expectations because they can affect our mind. They can make us have some narcissistic aspects about ourselves. It can make us very anxious about some parts of ourselves. It can make us fall into comparison traps. So I'm always educating and encouraging people to think about the grind culture and how it might influence your expectations in terms of what you're doing. Another specific aspect I see this in is especially my young professionals. So I do work with a lot of teachers, but I also work with a lot of young professional millennials. And the biggest thing I see is just this comparison. We graduated at the same time and she has this offers and I don't. We're at the same school and she has a job and I don't. Dismantling the grind culture, dismantling the comparison, right? I really think, the Forbes has 30 under 30, and I think it's slowly becoming 20 under 20 now. And there's a lot of pressure to be perfect, to be professional, to be very high capital and money making and successful at a younger and younger age. So I encourage you to dismantle some of those thoughts. Another piece, healthy expression over anxious suppression. I really like this. I think this is the ultimate goal. We all have different comfort levels in terms of getting there. Some of us are not really the most expressive. We prefer to express on our own. And some of us are highly expressive and we put that expression to everyone. But I just think it's a helpful phrase to consider. And last but not least, meditation, nature, praying, or counseling can be very helpful tools in maintaining and bettering the mind. Understanding the body. So this one is really important. This ultimately ties into physicality and our ability, right? I think we don't really understand the strength, or I even say as far to appreciate our body until, until something goes wrong. And I feel that is, something we have to work on. So a part of understanding the body is exercise, yoga, fruits and veggie, non-processed sugars, bike rides, walks, jogs. All those pieces are really important. And especially the piece about non-processed sugar. There's ever gaining more research about sugar's impact on our mind, on our body, on our sleep. So just things to keep in mind. And the fact that touch and sensory aspects are essential and important. I think if babies can have deficits in touch, so can adults, right? So I think I always try to tie it into touch, but playing with pets, massages, lighting candles, walking on the beach or grass, and gardening are extremely important ways to get in tune and tap to the body. And especially for people who might be single or living alone, touch is still important. Touch is still sensory, and it can still be pleasurable, and it can be non-sexual, or it can be non-interpersonal. It can be very solo, as gardening can be a solo activity, playing with pets can be a solo activity. I just think that's so important, because sometimes persons that I do identify as single kind of get left out of the importance of touch conversation. Pen and paper. So I want you to take a minute and reflect on the relationships in your life. Who do you want closer, and who might you want to have at a distance? You can pause right here. Great. I am going to move forward. So first and foremost, thank you guys for answering that. The next part we're moving to is we are social beings. And I think that sometimes gets left out of the mind-body conversation, right? We have the green juices, we have the therapy, but we also forget the relationships. That's very important. So with that, I want you to kind of think about the two closest people in your life. And if they were here, what do you suppose they would say that you have contributed to their life? I think this question is so important, because we often think of relationships as needs that we want or things we gain, but we very rarely think about our impact on others or impact to influence and better the important people around us. And I think it just ties into the reality that we are important, right? And relationships impact our self-respect, our self-esteem, and our self-kindness. So in that list that you just made with your relationships, also, make some notes. Who is really improving your self-respect, self-esteem, and self-kindness? Who makes those avenues a lot easier for you to tap into and express, right? And I think with social and relationships, we're kind of constantly battling like a development versus a performance thing, right? So the development of friendships, making new friends as a young adult, making new friends in the time of COVID, getting a new job, right? And then you have the performance aspect, the space where you have your friends, right? Balancing friendships with goals. So I think we're constantly battling those two entities. Another pen and paper. So I need you guys to fill in the blank. Digital wellness is ... I can improve my wellness in relation to technology by ... I'll do it one more time. Digital wellness is, fill in the blank. I can improve my wellness in relation to technology by, fill in the blank. So digital wellness is really important. I think amidst COVID now, where we are using social media more, dating apps are being used a lot more. YouTube, they're getting record numbers of people just watching videos for hours. We are online a lot. And I think it exists on a continuum, right, of how we're moving from isolated to conflicted to connected, right? And I think that's just something I want you to keep in mind when it comes to digital wellness. And digital wellness is not just Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all your social media. Digital wellness is how often you're using your phone. Digital wellness, it can also be your computer. Digital wellness can also be email, right? And think about all those moving pieces and what makes you feel connected, what is really hard and makes you feel conflicted, and what isolates you, right? So an example I'll give personal, isolated for me sometimes can be being on Instagram and maybe Twitter for hours and comparing, the comparison trap. I think that makes me feel a little isolated sometimes. I think the conflicted times comes in when I have a heavy workload and then there's a lot of emails and I have to respond to emails. And that kind of takes away from my wellness because I'm stressed. I also feel conflicted because if I don't answer this email, I wonder what will be said. And then the connected portion, I feel connected when I'm able to get up in the morning and do maybe a devotional app or listen to an inspirational song on my phone. I have like an inspirational playlist that I like. I also feel connected when I can answer emails throughout the day and then turn it off at a certain time. So just going through that continuum and asking yourself, where does your digital wellness lies, can be very, very helpful. And I think when it comes to digital wellness, we're constantly balancing pleasure versus procrastination. And I hope that we find a healthy middle. Other important healthy aspects of digital wellness is setting certain times to scroll through Instagram, Twitter, and emails. This is a huge life hack, and I definitely swear by it. I personally like doing emails kind of 8:30, noon, 4, and 5, at the end of the day. Also, oddly enough, on Sundays and Fridays, I kind of like sending out all emails in terms of confirming meetings for the week ahead. I find that really helpful, and it kind of takes the stress off of me in terms of digital wellness. Unfollowing certain accounts that make you insecure or defeated. I think that's really big. And it's not just maybe an account that's better than you or a friend that you might be, comparing yourself to or envious of. That's not really it. I'm more so talking about accounts that might use shaming language, accounts that might have so much grind culture that it really affects you. So I think more so along those lines. Connect with technology on purpose. Follow industry leaders. Learn about your desired field. This is something I'm also a big proponent of. So I follow Mental Health for America. As a counselor, I follow the American Counseling Association, the American Psychological Association. I follow mentors in my field. And I just love doing that because there's always work to be done. And it's inspiring to know that where I am right now is not where am I going to be later on. No tech before, not after noon. So 12 p.m. This one is interesting. I do this one sometimes, but it's basically a little hack in terms of not getting up and being on your phone first thing in the morning. And I have another friend, I told her about this idea, and she turns off her phone for the whole morning until noon. And I think that could be so productive. Everyone has their 1 or 2 apps that really just take them away from everything. So trying that might be helpful. Having little to no technology before bed. Charging your phone on the opposite side of the room is very helpful. And last but not least, I think that's helpful, and we don't talk about it that much, is negotiating technology and social media in intimate relationships, right? So it can be anything as much as following, tagging, and family. And this could be romantic relationships, family relationships, all those different pieces. I know some people, they have a personal page and a professional page. Some people follow all their family members. Some people don't follow all their family members. You have to decide what your digital wellness looks like. But I think this is really helpful and becoming ever more urgent in a time where social media is a huge part of our identities and the digital world is a huge part of our identity. So coming back to my why, right? So we talked about the mind, we talked about the body, we talked about the digital. Now, can we talk about how to find a therapist? Because that's in your title, how we're going to get there, right? So I wanted to go back quickly to my why. It's my hope that Americans and global citizens as a whole, we all gain access to resources that place mental health in the right person's hands, right? There's not a one-size approach to therapy, but there are many therapists willing to help. And I think that's so important. And there is that stigma of therapy, and it would be great just to have the right hands in mental health. And as a therapist, as a person that loves my profession and believes in it, I really strive to channel that appropriateness. And my mission is to remove barriers that underserved people experience getting access to or staying connected with emotional care and healing. So, how to find an amazing therapist. Disclosure, I will say that this process is a process to take time when doing said search, and to interview your therapist like you're, interviewing, getting a new doctor, or interviewing, getting a new masseuse or nanny or whatever service industry it may be. Take the time, be intentional, and know that sometimes the first one will not be it. I do want to say that disclosure, but let's start the process of how to find an amazing therapist. So first and foremost, who are the players in the mental health care field? I think this is incredibly important because even with me being a therapist, I was shocked to know how many hands are in the bucket of this thing called mental health. So first and foremost, a psychiatrist and psychiatric nurse practitioner are the only two, to my knowledge, that offer medication management. And some offer talk therapy, but most is more focused on medication management and mental illnesses and managing them that through medication. While medication does have a lot of stigma, and I am seeing more of a shift, people wanting to go to therapy as opposed to taking medication, I will say medication can be incredibly helpful, especially when we're talking about depression, anxiety, severe and persistent mental illness. Sometimes mood stabilizers stabilize, and they're not really uppers or downers, but they're meant to stabilize the mood and the serotonin. So I would, work through some of the stigma with medication for sure. A psychologist, PhD or PsyD, provides psychological testing, talk therapy, but they do not provide medication. However, in some states, there are medical psychologists that have undergoing additional training to qualify them to practice prescribing medications. So examples is Idaho, Louisiana, New Mexico, Illinois, and Iowa. And last but not least is talk therapy. Is also provided by licensed mental health counselors, LMHCs, myself, licensed professional counselors, LPCs, Georgia and some other states, marriage and family therapists, LMFTs, a lot on the West Coast and some on the South, and licensed clinical social workers, LCSW, LICSW, like majority of America. All these professionals are able to provide talk therapy services and have similar training. I do want to stress too that sometimes, I don't know why, there is kind of I don't know how to describe it, kind of a myth about therapists. I do want to stress that all three of these are graduate level degrees. Psychiatrists, psychiatric nurse, and psychologists are doctoral level, high level work. Licensed clinical counselors are they're not doctoral in terms of creed and research, but in terms of the lifespan, basically 4+ years of mental health training, 2 years, all total. So 2 years of classes, sometimes 3 for some people, and then 2 years of kind of a residency or an internship. So it takes a long time to be licensed. And I do say that to say that, some people are like, well, therapy is expensive, or, I can just go to my friend or different things, but we do not take out these loans and, amass a lot of these debt for nothing, where there's a lot of deep training, a lot of good boundary setting, and a lot of checks and balances our field has compared to going to a friend or certain people. And, just remember that a lot of these psychologists, licensed mental health counselors and psychiatrists, they're high and up-level, upstanding professionals. And, prices can be negotiated, but do take into fact that our training is expensive, tedious, and something we are constantly maintaining. And I don't think that gets talked enough about in the mental health affordability conversation. Therapist search. So directories are great. And the major two are Psychology Today and your Personal Insurance Counseling Network, as well as EAP, Employee Assistance Program. So Psychology Today, you can just Google it right now. It's a great website. You just type in Psychology Today, therapist directory. You put in your zip code and it literally shows you a whole long list of all the therapists. Well, not all, but most of the therapists in your community. You can gauge by price, you can gauge by insurance, you can gauge by specialty. I think certain diversities too, like LGBTQ and culture and different things of that sort. So I really enjoy Psychology Today. I tell majority of people to go on there. Another important piece is your insurance, your personal insurance counseling network. So this is really big. So for example, let's say my insurance is Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross and Blue Shield only has a handful of therapists that can see me. So I will call my insurance and ask for their list, and then go through that list and find and contact therapists who I feel like will be a good fit. And the last but not least is EAP counseling, which is employee assistance program. This one is very common. Majority of businesses have it. And usually EAP is more short-term based counseling, but it's great nonetheless. And a lot of them offer, remote telecounseling, telephonic counseling. So really ahead of the times. I do want to say some of the major drawbacks of the personal insurance counseling and EAP is that usually the coverage is not full or long-term. Some therapists don't really like personal counseling insurance because of the really low reimbursement rates and the paperwork that is due to go back and forth. I will say the field is moving definitely in a cash direction, but luckily there are many therapists that do payment plans and that allow you to pay for sessions kind of in bulks or in advance. And there's also sliding scale. So there's a lot of options. Do not let pay be the thing that holds you back. I'm going to repeat, do not let pay be the thing that holds you back. There are so many therapists out there, and this presentation is just really trying to help destigmatize, right, the therapy search. Another helpful piece is to read the therapist's website, see what they're saying about their area of expertise. Is it, substance abuse? Is it family counseling? Is it couple counseling, or even financial issues? Another thing people forget is counseling can also be relational, right? I think people know about couples counseling. I don't think people know that much about family counseling, right? Or even friendships, right? So do know that, right? Do know that counselors are trained to work with systems, right? So counselors can see parents and children. Counselors can see couples. Counselors can see families, right? Counselors can see friends that may have had a discord. Counselors can see couples, going through domestic violence concerns. So I say all that to say that we work in a system, in a social and a relational world. So does your therapist. So don't forget that. Therapy reviews are subjective. I do want to warn you of that. It's different than a restaurant or Yelp review, right? Chicken might, for most people, have a certain way chicken should be, and that's good. Therapy is a little bit different. A certain treatment can work for one person and not another, but I will say reviews are helpful, right? If I am searching for a therapist and there are 15 reviews and all 15 reviews are negative, that might say something. But if I'm searching for a therapist and there's 8 reviews and 3 are negative, but 5 are good, I might, take a chance, Another thing to take into account too is the stage at which the therapist is at. For example, I'm a therapist, but I'm still pretty emerging, younger, level. So a lot of my reviews may or may not, the positive, negative balance may be different than a therapist that's been, counseling for 20 years and every week has another review coming in. So take those things into account. And then just some questions, what areas in life do you want to explore? What do you want to talk about? Is there a specific focus that you have with past trauma or family or relationships or studying or focusing or concentration concerns? And whatever might be troubling you that week, write it down. I think this can be a really helpful, great starting point to talk about with your therapist while you're interviewing them. Contacting your list of potential therapists. So this part is not going to be too long, but the first step, let me go back. The first step is calling and emailing your therapist. So I call and leave a voicemail, but now in 2020, I think call and email doesn't hurt. You get it out the way, you make sure that you have 2 levels of communication. And nowadays, most therapists have both modes of contact. When you do get on the phone with them, ask them about their schooling and their certifications, right? Ask them about their licensure. Ask them about how they got into the field, how they got into their specialty, how long they've been doing it. And ask for certifications. You'd be surprised they even teach you a thing or two about some of the recent certifications that are out there. Ask for their experience concerning your particular issue, right? So if you are going to therapy for anxiety and concentration concerns, I would ask my counselor, hey, have you ever worked with concentration concerns? And, what might be some examples of some modalities or interventions or tools you might use? How long does the average client sit in your chair for? That's a very great question I like to ask. And it's, it's different strokes, different diagnosis, and You know, don't, just because somebody may be getting out the chair in 3 months and someone doesn't get out the chair in a year, it doesn't really mean anything, but it's still a helpful question to ask. And the fourth final question, ask about payment plans, ask about sliding scales, ask about, can I pay for 3 sessions with a discount? Can I pay for 2 sessions early? A lot of therapists are willing to work, and there's a lot of different avenues out there, and do not let cost be the thing that keeps you back. Last but not least, inclusive mental health care. I think for me, one of the starkest memories I have of being a counselor is frequently met with surprise. Many people tell me I am the first Black counselor they have ever met, and that they assume counseling with, older, older Caucasian persons. So I thought it'd be helpful to just include a piece about inclusive mental health care, to do know that there's many inclusive therapists of different racial diversities, different sexual orientation diversities and specialties. And that, I think that's so good, because we all have a diversity of concerns, but we also have a diversity of identities, and we want those identities to be seen, heard, and validated in our counseling sessions. So the first resource is Melanin and Mental Health. Through their website and online directory, they also have monthly events, and they speak to the needs of Black and Latinx Hispanic communities. Inclusive Therapists, it's an awesome directory for all identities, abilities, and bodies, and they also offer reduced fee teletherapy. Inclusive Therapists is really awesome. I've worked with them in the past, and they're really great in terms of really hitting many forms of diversities outside of just race. Therapy for Black girls, therapy for queer folks, therapy for Black men. 3 separate things, but kind of I just put them all together because it really just shows the diversity of counseling directories. But they really help expand the shared power in counseling, and they really work to help people find mental health services for those specific populations. Latinx Therapy, it's a bilingual podcast and directory. Goals at demystifying mental health stigmas in the Latinx community, which is absolutely awesome, and I'm rooting for. And last but not least, Psychology Today directory, one of the most popular ones, and it also has a diverse set of filters for you to search through and find different therapists that really speak to your needs. Okay, last one, guys, pen and paper. With what I know, I can find a therapist by fill in the blank. With what I know, I can find a therapist by fill in the blank. The next question. The second biggest lesson I learned today, well, the biggest lesson I learned today was fill in the blank. The biggest lesson I learned today was fill in the blank. So you can pause it here, but we have reached the end of the presentation. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to hear out this webinar that I made. I love all things mental health. I love reducing the stigma. And please, for some people listening and watching, I did not get to see you face to face. So please follow me. Please take pictures and hashtag it and send it to me. It really is encouraging when doing this kind of work. It can feel isolating. So seeing kind of the wellness plans and the questions answered will be very helpful. If you have any questions or concerns or want more resources, please feel free to follow me at Fresh Progress Wellness, as well as using the hashtag Fresh Progress Wellness. And yeah, so that is it. My name is Leah Herbert. I'm a licensed mental health counselor based in Orlando. I'm also a doctoral student, and I study wellness counseling. I study mental health promotion among teachers, and I'm also incredibly fascinated by systems counseling and expanding that into low resource and high resource settings. So if you want to learn more about me and tap and engage with me in my work, you guys know where to follow me at. But thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. And you guys have an absolutely great one. Thank you so much. Bye.